Our presenter. And he's been around a while, and he plays in a band with my wife Katie. It's sometimes called Skatey, but they were playing the fair, and we were leaving to get to our car, and we were rattling off stories on how many buddies we had in common and how long. And it was, there's a lot of folks just being around playing music or listening to music over decades and decades. And he's been in numerous bands, recorded numerous albums, and is here to tell you about that. His name is Steve Smith.
Well, on the Love Bucket, thank you all very much, by the way. On the Love Bucket, I was going to mention this last, but since the Love Bucket is there, because this is such a great organization, I really have such respect for these guys doing, shining the light on local music and local music history. I've got 3 of my CDs on thumb drives here that I'm going to sell for $15 for. You get the 3 CDs and the thumb drive, which may be worth more than the CDs. But if you want one of those, all the proceeds go to Music Monday to help support this fine organization. And happy to do that, to make a contribution. So, and I also have CDs here, being a hoe, if you want to buy them. So, well, the coolest part of this process of being asked to do this, and I'm really honored to have been asked, is that you get to go back and you get to think about it. I've been doing this since I was 13 years old, and I'm 65. So 52 years of being in the music business. And you really, you don't think about this stuff. You don't, you think about some of it, you remember the war stories, but you don't really think about how many dates did I play, where did I play, and what bands I was in, and so on. You kind of look at it in total, and it's like, wow, I did a lot of stuff. So to sum up my life as a musician, I've been really lucky. I've managed to be in the right place at the right time in a lot of situations. I've played with just the best musicians. I've been so lucky to have such good players to work with, and far better than I deserve. But anyway, I've been there. One of my biggest influences was my dad. Starting out, my dad was he was a plumber. He was actually a professional baseball player before that, and he was a musician. He and his twin brother, identical twin brother, played house parties. Dad played mandolin, and my uncle played ukulele, and they played these god-awful songs, like Get Off the Table, Mabel, The Quarters for the Beer, Don't Go Swimming with Bow-Legged Women. For those people that have met my dad, they know that I come by this honest. And my sister's here, so she can tell you that too. She's, it's not our fault. But and my dad was a great singer. He loved to sing, and I think that's probably where he would listen to great singers. And I don't know how he came up in Springfield, Missouri. I don't know how he came up with a Sam Cooke album, but he did. One day, there it was. I was kind of digging through the records. That's different. A black guy, and I listened. I listened to that record, and a song called "Change Is Gonna Come" was on it. And I heard that, and I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. And he had a friend named Marvin Coker. And we grew up. I grew up about a block away from for you old Springfield. The Robinson Avenue over by Jarrett Junior High School was a black neighborhood. So I had a lot of my friends were black, and so I had those influences. I go to their houses. I hear I hear Temptations. I hear Motown stuff. So it was good. Those are all good influences. And so I started, later on started listening to Otis Redding, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis, Johnny Cash, Nat King Cole. Those are people that my dad was listening to as well. So first band I was in, I don't remember the name of the band, but the significant thing about it was there were three things that were interesting. Number one, our PA was a twin reverb. And the guitar player got one channel and I got one channel. And the bass player played a stand-up bass, doghouse bass. And I sucked. I was really bad. And I got fired. And I deserved it. But it pissed me off. So I'd go home every day after school and I'd put a stack of records on the record player, and I practiced for hours, and it just annoyed my parents, but I got better. And about 8 months later, I got in another band, and the guys in the first band that fired me heard us play somewhere and said, "Wow, what happened? Did you take voice lessons?" I said, "No, you guys made me mad." And I'll probably mention Wonderly a lot, because Wonderly, growing up, Wonderly and I were, we were competitors. He was a year younger than me, but we were fighting for that attention, to be the front man of Spring. Benny was already there, and Benny, but Wonderland and I were really competitive back in those days, and it drove us to be better. And guys that we were listening to, Benny Mahan, I learned so much from that guy. And I think about how good Granny's Bathwater was. What an anomaly that was. Springfield's rich in musical heritage. There's a lot of great musicians here. That was one that was way up there. So I'm just sucking up to Bill. No, that was a great band. And Charlie McCall was another guy I was listening to, right? And this is going to be a weird one, but Bob Philibert. Okay. Well, Philibert wasn't that good of a singer, but he was a showman. And I watched him, man. He would take those tambourines, and spin them, roll them down his arms. He had all these tambourines, and he'd do it through his hands and stuff. And I picked up all that stuff, and I used it for years and years and years, so I haven't played tambourine much anymore. But he was an influence. And I was listening to Sam and Dave, Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, Eddie Floyd, all those guys. That was the stuff I kind of cut my teeth on. Other influences of note, Little Feat, probably my favorite band, and Lowell George. I learned to go, do those bends and stuff. Listen to Lowell. Greg Allman. I listened to the Beatles. I liked the Beatles, but they were a little milquetoast for me. I was more of a Stones and the Who, the guys that were busting up drum sets and stuff like that. And then, but the Stones did bring us this. They did bring us Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, and we learned about those guys who were right here in our backyard. So, I listened when I finally caught up to that. I listened to a lot of that. So lots of really interesting early gigs. I thought this beared mentioning because we were, back in the 60s, in a lot of these small towns around Springfield, we were the first bands to ever play at some of these high schools. I remember playing, I'll tell you one story. We played Purdy. And we were the first band to ever play it.
It's all your fault.
Yeah. And this was I think it was Zap or a predecessor to Zap. So we were playing Deep Purple and Uriah Heep and hard rock, right? And they set up the chairs. There's of course no dancing, and in the contract. They had a rider that the band must wear suits and ties. Well, that was a problem because we didn't have any suits and ties. And so we just blew that off and went to the gig, and we're setting up on stage, and the chairs are out there, and we're going, really? They're just gonna listen to us? And the principal comes up, he says, where are your boys' seats? I said, we don't have any seats. Well, this is the problem. Okay, well, so you'll have to wear band uniforms. True story. So we're on stage in Purdy, Missouri. They can't dance, and we look like Sergeant Pepper's. But it was, and we played a lot of like Cuba, Missouri. I remember playing Cuba. It was the first band they ever played there. And there were a lot of places like that. And always, we got stopped by the cops, and they make you unload the entire van. They were looking for drugs, and we were smarter than that. We knew where to hide them. So anyway, but it was really interesting time in the music business. So from there, I started playing piano at 20. I really wanted to write. And, so I kind of made the band I was playing in let me play keyboards because it was pretty awful at first. So I practiced a lot. It was something I wanted to be good at, and I'm still trying to be good at it. But anyway, so I said, you want the voice, you got to let me play. So I started doing that. I was fortunate enough to get some lessons from Tom Becker, who's Granny's alum, and Frank Westbrook and Ike Stubblefield. And then I took lessons from Kelly Brown for about 6 years. And Kelly, I don't want to, Kelly was a game changer for me. Kelly really made, and people say things to me, which is probably wrong to say that like I'm in the league with Kelly or Joe Terry or something like that. I say, no, those guys are real piano players, and they're just, but what Kelly taught me was huge, and I can't thank him enough. And again, fortunate to play with so many fine musicians through the years. Sorry, these pages are so, and one of them is here, and the guy that I call my musical soulmate. There's, I learned a ton from Dave Painter. Dave, sorry. Dave's my best friend. And people tell us, they said it to him and to me, said, you guys are great on your own, but together it's magical. And every once in a while, you have something happen in a musical career. It doesn't happen that often. But when we get together, there's some symbiotic thing that happens, and it is definitely the sum of the parts are not the whole of the part. The sum of the parts is greater than the parts. So anyway, thanks Dave for everything. 60s bands, early band. I'll tell you, I think I was 15, 16, somewhere there. Billy Poole, Ricky Poole, Tom Whitlock, and Kerry Powell. I was still a front man at that time, and I remember Tom Whitlock. You guys, you need to get him to come. You guys know who Tom Whitlock is? I mean, everybody thinks of him in terms of the Dog People and Soup and the Sandwiches, but Tommy's, Tommy's job is to go to the mailbox and get checks. He's an Academy Award winner, and I saw him one time, and I actually fired him from this band because back when you're 15, if somebody's got double bass drums, even if they're not as good a drummer, you got to go with that. So he says, Steve, you're the only person who ever fired me from a band. I said, yeah, that was smart, wasn't it? Firing an Academy Award winning musician. 70s bands, I was on the road. A lot of what was happening in Springfield at the time was in the 70s. I missed. I was gone. And again, one of the cool processes, part of this process of going back and look at this stuff, is that I was surprised how many dates a year I was playing. I looked at the calendar, and I was playing 250, 300 dates a year for years. And then I came back after being on the road all over the place and played in Branson 6 nights a week for 4 years. So it was at the Holiday Inn and Down Under. I wasn't in a show, but it was kind of a show. Anyway, so it was, you know, a lot of this was a blur, so I really kind of conjure it back up. Another band I was in was a band called Charlie. It was kind of a precursor to Zap. Stevie Richardson, I don't know if you guys remember Stevie, great bass player, singer. Larry Gilmore, keyboard player. Lyndall Trogdon, Kurt Decker. Then Zap, which was a pretty well-known band. Larry Gilmore's my cousin Stan Smith, Dwayne Lewis, Guy Elliott. And just a note on my cousin Stan. I'm really proud of him. He's a great drummer. Went on to play with Tanya Tucker for 5 years and Dottie West, and was a session drummer in Nashville. And now living in Hernando, Mississippi, and teaching at the School of Rock in Memphis. So finally got a real job. Anyway, kudos to Stan. So after that, I mean, in the early 70s, I moved to Memphis, Tennessee. And that changed everything. I mean, because I was just a local provincial Missouri boy, right? I mean, I played 4 or 5 states around Missouri, but Memphis was another thing. We went down there thinking we were hot stuff. Here we come, Memphis, watch it. And there were 10 guys on every street corner that could kick our ass. That was the first revelation that that there's a lot of really good players out there, and the difference between the ones that are recording and making a lot of money at it is that they got lucky, and they it's who you know and being lucky, right, Robin?
Absolutely.
I mean, those are really the things that matter if you're trying to. And back in the old days, they'd give you. I mean, the record labels would give you some time. They developed artists, and they don't do that anymore, And there were 6 night-a-week gigs, and it was a different world. But anyway, we moved to Memphis. We were making. It was a 5-piece band. We were making. This is Head Over Heels 1. There were 3 versions of this band. And we were making $125 a week for a 6-piece because we had five members in the band and a sound and light guy who got an equal cut because he had the PA and the lights and ran them. He probably should have gotten more, but anyway. And the showcase clubs in Memphis paid better, but those gigs were harder to get. I mean, we played there some. There's a lot of people wanting in those, so it was easier to get the low-hanging fruit. Just didn't pay enough. There were 6 of us living in a 1-bedroom apartment in the worst part of Memphis. I mean, we were, is anybody familiar with Memphis know Danny Thomas Boulevard and that side of Memphis? Okay, well we don't have a gun, we don't have anything. We're carrying these expensive instruments in every night after the gig. And it's a 1-bedroom apartment, and the helicopters are flying over all night long with the spotlights, chasing perps. That's the neighborhood that we were in. And we were living on white bread and peanut butter. I mean, it was just, and we were so bored, and we had no money to do anything else. I'll tell you one story about that experience. We invented this thing called the cockroach races. Well, there were no lack of cockroaches in the apartment. And so, and the boys were using Corseed bottles for slides at that point in time. So we would catch the cockroaches, and we put them in the bottles, and then we drop them in boiling water for 3 minutes, and then take them out and put them in the freezer, and go back and forth, and whoever's cockroach lived the longest won. True story. But, yeah, it was, I mean, and Memphis at that time was not as dangerous as it is today, but it was just a defining moment in my life. And we got sent down there. I don't think I skipped this part, but and let me know, Chris, how I'm doing on time if I need to speed up.
I don't have speed control on the camera.
Okay, good. We were playing at a bar in Lawrence, Kansas. I think it was Off the Wall Hall. Anybody play that one? Maybe that was Topeka. That might have been Topeka. I don't know.
Red Dog.
Huh?
The Red Dog.
This is where again.
It was Yuck Down.
Huh?
It was Yuck Down, right there on the freeway coming into Lawrence.
That may have been it. Anyway, I had a box of contracts and pictures from this period. I have some of them over here, but I lost a bunch of them, so I can't remember a lot of this stuff. But anyway, we were there and we're playing, and I was writing at that time, and we were playing some of those songs, and this guy comes up on a break, and he says, "Man, you guys are really good. I've got a recording studio down in Memphis. I'd like you to come down and record. I think, we could do some stuff." I said, "Yeah, okay." I said, "Who are you?" He says, "Sam Phillips." Wow. So he was up there visiting his son or something like that. He was going to school. And anyway, so we went down and did that and thought we were hot stuff, but we weren't. So I was doing anything. Well, okay, we were. So go on to Head Over Heels 2. There was a guy named Jimmy Jamison that was in a band called Target with a guy named Paul Cannon. You ever heard of those guys? Jimmy Jamison ended up in a band called Survivor, Eye of the Tiger, that deal. But anyway, those guys are playing down there, and we had a band with Jimmy. Not Jimmy rather, but Jimmy and Paul were having some problems getting along. So I asked Paul if he wanted to play with us, and he said sure. And so he came and played in Head Over Heels too, and that picture's down there. I think the drummer in that band was Steve Fly, and Bill Godley played bass, Danny Coates was on guitar still. Anyway, those guys went on. I mean, they did really well for themselves. And Billy Joel was playing in Memphis at the same time. He either had just released, but he was playing the same dives as we were, just released his first album or was about to release it. And he was a jerk. So he was really, he's a really talented guy.
Number one.
Huh? He was just really not nice. We were the house band at a club called the Thirsty Elephant. And we would do live radio shows. Once a month they'd have a live radio show. And we did shows with a lot of good bands. Big Star was one of them. Alex Chilton from the Box Toppers was in that band. And then the Amazing Rhythm Aces, we did a show with them, Russell Smith. And so got to know those guys. And I started I started looking for session work. Because I'd done recording and I knew some things about it. Plus I just doing background vocals or whatever. And so I went to Tanner Studios and I slept there during the day and worked, cleaned the bathrooms, whatever. And they'd throw me some stuff from time to time. I started getting more and more session work. And I was, so I was working there one day I think I was doing background vocals on a Chevy commercial. And because Tanner's a big group, they do a lot of jeans. 10 minutes? Oh Lord. Anyway, so I was working there, and this guy came in and was talking to the session engineer, and it turned out that he liked my voice and wanted me to come and sing. He was in another studio and wanted me to come and sing. And I didn't know who it was. His name was John Prine. And now he's one of my favorite songwriters, but I was like, okay, sure, whatever. All pays the same. So I went over and did some vocals for him. And, you know, he was a really nice guy, unlike Billy Joel. And so we, you know, he said, well, I'm working in Arden on some stuff too. Can you come over there and do it? I said, yeah. So he got me in Arden Studios. I did some work there, and I did some more work at Arden for some other people. But it turns out he was working on a album called Common Sense, and I'm not on it. So they didn't use it. But all right, moving quickly on. But in Memphis, I sold my first songs. I was first published then. From there, I went to play with a band. This was a great experience for me. A band called Funkenstein. It was a 7-piece horn band, and I was the only white guy in the band. I was the front man for the band, and we were playing black clubs through the South. And that's significant to me and a game changer again, because I got to experience prejudice. Because Jim Crow was alive and well back in that time, and we were playing black clubs, and these guys, they didn't like me very much. You know, it was like, and the guys in the band saved my bacon several times. But it was a really, really good band. We played a lot of places or some of the places in NOLA that you guys play, the Grandy's played. We played the Ivanhoe, the Bastille, the Warehouse. You know, we played all over Louisiana. We played through the South playing gigs. We played the Rec Bar in Miami. I don't know, did anybody play the Rec Bar? It was an odd gig. It was an old shipwreck, and it had a band on each end, okay? And you were on 4 hours and off 4. So you were there. Yeah, so you were there 12 hours a day, right, or 16 hours. You got to go sleep, but you were on 4, then the other band would play, then you'd play, then the other band would play. So that's, yeah, so you're there 12 hours, I guess. But yeah, but it paid really well. So, and that's from there. I leveraged the connections at Arden to get in Criteria to do some work down there. We didn't stay in Miami long. I hated Miami. It was really a sucky place. Played in a band called Landslide. My cousin Stan, Monty Safford, great drummer in Columbia, Missouri. Rick Gibson, Gary Coble, Chuck Francisco. I don't know if you remember Chuck. Anybody remember Chuck? Great keyboard player. And then I played 6 nights a week in Branson for 4 years with a band called Ozarks Connection. Craig White, Rick Friend, Mitch Kersey were in that band. Let's see. Played some country for a while with a guy named Shorty Moyer. Shorty was an alcoholic, and he had a 400-card Rolodex, and he'd get drunk, and he'd just start pulling stuff out, and he'd set it down, and he'd start playing. He wouldn't tell us what it was, but that was really good training. And I played with Dina Self for a while, and then the fun guys with Dave Painter, Brian Hickman, Sean Maxfield, Greg Burris, Loon Rangers, Dave, Brian, and Bruce Merle, the Bluesberries. Tom let me in for a while, back when he allowed keyboard players in the band. I had a lot of fun. The Bluesberries, I had a lot of fun playing with them. The Painter Smith or Back Alley Dan, they were kind of revolving members in that, but mostly Bert Parnell, I think, BJ, and Dave and I, and we had the Elevators, who's another band, BJ Rossi, Big Mike Williamson, Dave Painter, Anna Marie. Regarding Dan, was the most granny-like band that I've ever been in. We were doing Steely Dan and the Meters and stuff like that, and that was Mike LeMasters, Johnny Strickler, Doug Ritter, and Ron Barkham. And I was in one final story. They had this they were shooting a pilot for a songwriting reality show. So if you were a songwriter, it was called America Is It a Hit? And I guess the concept is people would vote on, they'd listen to the song and vote on whether it was a hit or not. So we did this pilot. There were 500 people that showed up to, 500 songwriters that showed up, and they chose 9 people, and I was one of the 9 that they chose. And that's in that magazine over there that 417 did. And so anyway, and the best thing to come out of it was cool. I mean, it was really cool. But the best thing to come out of that, I made some contacts with publishing people and was able to sell some songs, and so been fortunate to do that. So current projects: Steve Smith and the Sneakers with Doug Ritter, Rick Salvador, Dave Painter, and Bill Jones. Monkey Business, a new band. Sean Clavin, Dave Milligan, and Barney Naote, kind of a Branson band. And then Katie, my dear Katie McCroskey, and I get up and just give it out, don't we? Yeah. So I'm working on an alt country CD because I like it, and another CD of sneakers type stuff, and at my recording studio in my basement in Mau Mau 2. And I didn't talk about Mau Mau Studios, but there were, there was a lot of skullduggery. I actually had to tune Runa Wali's guitar. He was so drunk he couldn't tune it. So a keyboard player tuned his guitar so we could do the session. Anyway, I've worked with so many great players, and I'm able to do that because my legs are shot. I can't lift stuff, I can't balance. So all the people I play with, if they weren't kind enough to help me with that, I would not be playing live anymore. And my wife Leslie, who is she's my roadie and my groupie, so I guess she's a groupie. I would encourage, and I know everybody in this room has done this, but I think we all owe it to, I got a lot of help from people as I was coming up, so I spend a lot of time, as much time as I can, helping younger musicians, and I encourage everybody to do that. I think everybody does. Everybody I see does it. This is the anniversary of one of the most awful events in our history, and I'm reminded of how generous musicians are and how much they give. To the community, and so, teach them to serve the song. Teach them that the notes they don't play are every bit as important as the ones they do, right? And teach them about dynamics. You'll wear your audience out if you don't have dynamics. Bring stuff down, bring it back up, build. So, and never take your audience for granted. I'm always humbled that anybody wants to come out and see me play, and I'm compelled to thank everybody that does. And so, anyway, thanks to everybody that's helped me over the years and are helping me now. And again, I wouldn't be here without my wife Leslie. So, I'm happy to answer questions. I've got thumb drives up here and CDs, and anyway, we can answer questions now. 5 minutes for questions, and yes, sir. Hi, Dick.
Hey, buddy.
There's a guy that supported me through the years for at least 30 years, I'd say, or more.
Yeah. How'd you come up with the name Mau Mau Studios?
That's an interesting story. I just came up with. I thought it sounded like some cool tropical island, and with these nice tribes will put lays on you. And,
The poisonous snake.
I had a missionary come out to record, and this missionary said, "Well, who the Mau Mau's were? They slaughtered a bunch of missionaries." Yeah. I didn't know that, but my Mau Mau's are nice. So yeah, I did find out later, but I liked the name, so it stuck. Tom Becker and I owned Mau Mau together. He was my partner in that studio. Yeah. I've just worn you out, haven't I? Yes, sir.
Who was your father and uncle?
Elwin Smith was his name, and his twin brother was Melvin. I'll tell you a funny story. This will give you some insight about my father. My grandmother had already had 3 male children, and at the age of 44, she had these twins. And they were the meanest little SOBs. I mean, they were just unreal. And I asked my grandmother one time, I said, where did you get those names? I said, because my middle name's Elwin, after my dad. And she said, honestly, I was so tired of naming children, and just so tired. I was driving past an insurance billboard, and it had that name, and I said, that'll work. True story. Gene?
All right, Steve, I'm gonna steal a question from Dan Rather. What song do you want played at your funeral for everybody to remember you by?
Man, God, I don't know.
Is Dan Rather here today?
No.
I think probably the song that I'm most proud of that I wrote or co-wrote with my wife Leslie and this kid named Nate Garlick. Garlic, I'm sorry, not garlic, Garlic. Anyway, Leslie sent me, Nate was a kid that came up in the foster care system. And Leslie sent me a poem he wrote. And I was so moved by this poem about his life, which was pretty awful, that I wrote this song called Broken and Beautiful. It's on my solo CD. And and I sent it to Nate, and I said, look, I don't want anything. All I want to do is like try to generate some money for kids in the system. Let's try to sell this and see what we can do with it. But I think that's the song I'm most proud of, because Nate's just my hero. He's just such a great kid, and I'm happy to report he survived this awful experience. He went to college. He's doing really well. He's about to get married in October. And I couldn't be more proud of him. He's just a great kid. So play that one, because that one means a lot to me. Yes, ma'am.
I understand that you have sold a song to Nora Jones.
Yeah, I did.
I wish she would record it.
I did. It's on the CD. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about this, okay?
Yeah.
Unless you make too much of it, like you get some upfront money and not much, and then you know if they record it, you get half of the royalties, and so she hasn't recorded it yet. So
Lots of times,
I've been calling her, but she won't take my calls.
seems people don't realize it's these stars that buy a song and they'll stick it on the shelf for years maybe. And
They'll buy 5 of them,
Yeah.
and they're working on a project. See, I mean, they'll look at, okay, how's this fit, right? And so, I'm honored that it happened. It wouldn't have happened unless a buddy of mine in LA that, Facebook is good and bad, right? But, I was able to, I reconnected with him on Facebook, and, we were sharing material, and he said, man, I know the manager for Nora Jones. I love this song. I think it's perfect for it. Would you mind if I pitched her? I go, sure. So, but it doesn't really mean anything. I'm not, farting through silk underwear yet. So.
overnight success, right?
Yeah. Any other questions?
Jenny Land, is that one about Larry?
Jenny Lee on my solo album is about, I wrote about Janet Gothrop Lee, who I met Janet when she was 6 years old. She moved to our neighborhood, and man, I'm telling you, she was a tomboy, tough as nails. But she was just this beautiful, blonde, green eyes, blonde hair. I mean, it's just, but she kicked my butt lots of times. It was her way or the highway, really. Okay, I'm getting the high sign to shut up. So, guys, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.